We are now live and we may start the meeting. Thank you.
All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to our September 22nd, 2020 City Council meeting. So we'll call it to order and hand it over to our city clerk to call roll.
Mayor John Caposcia,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Rochelle Arizmendi,
Present.
Councilmember Jean Goss,
Here.
Councilmember John Harabedian,
Here.
and from the Library Board of Trustees, Chair Rich Proctor, Vice Chair Rodney Spears,
Here.
Trustee Patricia Hall,
I got a call from Patricia. She said her computer had failed and she's trying to find another way of getting online, possibly contacting Barry Ziff and coming in and doing
Okay.
it. So she's,
Thank you.
that's,
Okay, and then Trustee Barry Ziff.
Present.
Mr. Mayor, you have a quorum and may conduct city business.
When Ms. Hall arrives, let's try to make note of that for the record as to when she joined the meeting. Okay, with that, Mayor Pro Tem will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and inspiration. So again, reminder, everybody mute, and we'll just listen to Mayor Pro Tem recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
Okay, if you are able to stand where you're at, please do so. And you can repeat after me. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everybody. You know, instead of words of inspiration, maybe I have words of more so gratitude today. It's been a very trying week for many of us as residents here in Sierra Madre for the last couple of weeks, and also our fellow community members along the foothills, and now, unfortunately, on the other side of, or closer to the north side of where the Bobcat fire is. So I just want to express my thank you to just about everyone that's involved. Our staff did an amazing job. All of our fire department, our police department, all of the other strike fire agencies that were involved in this. We had the opportunity to meet a few of them for all the different fire agencies that came and assisted here in unified response. And we're just extremely thankful for everyone that has really risked their lives and also just did their job in order to best protect and preserve where we are in terms of our city.
I look better with the mask.
Our prayers and thoughts go out to our other community members. I think last I heard, we're at 15% containment. In the state alone, over 2 million, I think possibly even reaching 3 million acres. It's just extremely unprecedented. And again, special thanks to our staff. I know that you know, we're really being tested not just with COVID, but also with this fire, and really applause to what our staff's been able to do in the communication. I think there were concerns at first, but eventually we had it down to a science, and we just got nothing but positive praise from our residents here. So thank you to everybody. And again, special thanks of gratitude to everyone tonight.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. And I do see that Trustee Hall has joined the meeting. Hello, Trustee Hall. Okay, I just got a text to say that there is a Spectrum outage and some people cannot view the meeting via Spectrum. What options do we have? Just go to the city website?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
might suggest to people that they try the hotspot on their phone. Some phones have hotspots you can use for Wi-Fi purposes.
Yeah.
If I may, we do have public access Wi-Fi at the city library in the patio area that is very fast internet. It has wide range, and we also have Memorial Park, pretty good coverage on the green area. So if anybody wishes to come out and connect, we would have that access available. We also got a report from the utility director that it was affecting the city yards, and we got an ETA of 8 o'clock for a resolution from Spectrum.
Yeah, okay. But they also can go to the city website and click on watch the council meeting, right?
Certainly, but without Spectrum, they wouldn't be able to arrive at the city website.
Oh, I see, I see. Okay. All right. Well, if somebody wants to put that out on Facebook, I don't know how to get the word out to people, but that is it's an option. Okay, all right, so moving on with the meeting here. Next on the agenda is approval of meeting agenda. Does anybody have any proposed changes to the agenda?
Oh,
Okay,
I have
with
none.
that, do we have a vote of the, or a motion to?
Move to approve.
Oh, thank you.
I'll second.
Okay, Madam City Clerk, if you can call for the vote.
City Clerk, you're on mute.
I'm sorry, I apologize. Mayor Kaposha,
Yes,
Mayor Pro Tem Arizmendi,
Aye.
Councilmember Goss,
Aye.
Councilmember Harabedian.
Aye.
The motion to approve the agenda as presented was approved by unanimous vote.
okay, thank you. Okay, meeting minutes. Any changes to the minutes? We've got two. Let's approve them both in one motion if possible, but are there any suggested changes?
None from me.
Me neither. I'll move to approve both.
Second?
Okay, Madam City Clerk, we have a motion and a second.
Mayor Kaposha,
Yes,
Mayor Pro Tem Arizmendi,
Aye.
Councilmember Goss,
Aye.
Councilmember Harabedian.
Yes.
The motion to approve the minutes of the special city council meeting of September 8th as presented and the minutes of the emergency city council meeting of September 13th as presented was passed by unanimous vote.
okay, thank you. Council members, anybody want to make a report?
I'll just quickly echo the Mayor Pro Tem's sentiments about the fire, the response, just how well the city collectively responded to it. Our staff, obviously the first responders, and everyone from our city manager down, to the interns, just really pulled together and did an impressive job would be an understatement. And obviously, we're just so proud of the outcome, but obviously the process to get to that outcome was pretty amazing to see. And I think that, we need to thank those local agencies that helped us, everyone from City of Vernon, Downey, LA County, Arcadia, Monrovia, Pasadena. It was really amazing to see when you were driving around just how many fire trucks and fire personnel were from throughout LA County. It was, it makes you feel good knowing that when you're put in that situation, there are literally, hundreds of people coming to your help. So really a harrowing, breathtaking, couple weeks there. And it's not over. I mean, our neighbors in the Antelope Valley are now dealing with it, so pray for them. But thank you to all the first responders and city staff that did everything.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Councilmember Goss?
I will, sure, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to no need to repeat what my two colleagues have said. I'm just very grateful for all the people that did all the amazing things that kept us safe and protected our property and are continuing to do that. So here to the comments before mine. I do want to say, I, like many of you, attended the candidates forum put on by the Kiwanis Club this Sunday afternoon. And I thought it was very interesting and illuminating. It was great to actually have a community event out of doors and not in a Zoom meeting, though some of you probably watch it on Zoom. And I just came away with a very positive view. I really feel like we've got some really quality candidates running for the 2-year seat and the 4-year seat. And I think the future is bright for Sierra Madre. That's my report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem?
No additional report. Thank you.
Okay, I just want to echo all my peers. I'm just blown away by our public safety personnel, especially the fire department, but the police department also had a very big hand in this. So again, just thank you. And I'm just very proud that we do have our own police and fire. And I hope we can maintain that as long as I'm alive and kicking here in Sierra Madre. So thanks, everybody. Okay, next on the agenda, I'm going to skip public comment for a minute and let's go to the consent calendar, and we'll do public comment for items not on the agenda and also for any items on the consent calendar at the same time, just to shorten things up a little bit. So Madam City Clerk, do you want to read out the items on the consent calendar?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item A, consideration of resolution 20-63 approving certain demands. Item B, letter to elected representatives regarding the reopening of Sierra Madre's breweries and bars. And item C, November election voting options. And that concludes the consent items for this evening.
Are there any questions on the consent calendar?
Not for me.
Nope.
Okay, Chairperson Proctor, since we've got all your Board of Trustees here and they're not part of the public, I would just, if they have a comment on anything on the consent calendar, I'll open it up to them as well, just as members of the public.
Okay. So Trustee Hall, do you have anything? Shannon?
Not at
Are we
this time.
unmuted? Nothing? Okay. Trustee King?
Sorry, that was me. Not at this time. Thank you.
Okay, okay. Trustee Spears?
Well, I was out of town during the first part of the fire, and I was thrilled when I got home that my house was still here. I have to
I hear you.
commend the city staff and all the people that came in to help us. It was amazing how we got through it when so many didn't.
That's true. Amazing is a good word, yes. And Trustee Ziv?
Just Happy New Year to all those that are celebrating 5781.
Okay,
Shauna.
I think we're good, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Okay, at this time, we'll open it up for public comment on the call-in line. And also, we'll take any public comments on anything that is not on the agenda. And of course, we will be talking about 3 items related to the library in a bit. So if you call in and you want to talk about the library, please hold off until we get to that point. So are there anybody on the call-in line that wants to make a public comment for any items not on the agenda or for any item on the consent calendar?
Mr. Mayor, we do have one caller in line. I will patch them through now.
Okay,
Good evening, caller. We are currently accepting public comments for items not on the agenda, as well as on the consent calendar. You will have up to 3 minutes to provide your comment. You may proceed. Caller, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. I'm sorry. Is there a way for people to participate in the meeting? There is a spectrum outage in a good portion of town. Cable is out and TV is out. So the only way we can participate is via phone, and we're on hold with music and and we can't hear anything that's going on in the meeting.
Unfortunately, the only method we do have currently available for watching the meeting live would be to do it from the city website. I don't know if you have a phone with a smartphone with cellular reception, but if you go to our city website and you click on Watch Meeting Live, the meeting is streaming live there.
That makes perfect sense. I will do that. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. And Mr. Mayor, that was the only caller that was in line for public comment.
Okay, I have a few letters that I want to read then. Okay, one is from Elizabeth Mason. As the election season is coming up, I'd like to draw your attention to Proposition 16, which is about government preferences. The California Constitution says the state shall not discriminate against or grant preferential treatment to any individual or group on the basis of race, sex, color, ethnicity, or national origin in the operation of the public employment, public education, or public contracting. Proposition 16 will strike out and eliminate this language for the California Constitution. No substitutes provided. However, the summary being put forth to voters is this, quote, allows diversity as a factor in public employment, education, contracting decisions, legislative constitutional amendment, close quote. If diversity is the goal, why eliminate the Constitution that says you cannot benefit one race and gender over another? Why not propose that a proposition says it? You specifically benefit one race, gender over another that isn't discrimination. Some people say this proposition will hurt one or two races specifically of their higher performances in college admissions, which I don't agree. In the long run, it hurts everyone, hurts our state because Prop 16 will eliminate equal opportunity, fair competition, which made California one of the most prosperous and diversified states in the whole country. Okay, therefore, I urge City Council to take a position to oppose Proposition 16. Our city doesn't need it, California doesn't need it. Okay, here's another one, same topic, Proposition 16. Lately, there were many rallies organized by residents throughout California to oppose Proposition 16. Civil rights activists, law professors, elected officials, and students and parents all spoke passionately against Proposition 16 in those rallies. Why was that? I learned that Prop 16 was proposed by the state Assemblywoman Shirley Weber, aiming to repeal Prop 209, part of the California Constitution, which clearly prohibits the state from discrimination on all those things. Yet the state wants to repeal it. If Prop 16 passes in the November election, it means we, the Californians, allow the state to discriminate against all of us based on our race, gender, or color, and allow special treatment. This is totally unconstitutional and against the American value of equal rights. Okay, the ballot label was written in a very misleading fashion. Let's not all be misled by the ballot label. We should say no to discrimination. Please vote no on Prop 16. That is from Chloe Martinez. And we have from Deb Sheridan. This is regarding consent item B. I urge you to send the well-drafted letter to our elected representatives about reopening our two breweries. The Buccaneer is an institution that has been in Sierra Madre longer than most residents, and RT Rogers is one of our newest establishments, helping with the 3rd of July Beer Garden and the Mount Wilson Trail Race. We owe it to them to keep them afloat. Okay, consent item C. 2 weeks ago, I spoke about my concern for our Sierra Madre citizens' right to vote. Thank you for agendizing the issue. I'm still concerned about the chaos in the post office, as noted on the front page of the LA Times, and urge you to send a resolution to the postmaster that will protect our post office. Thank you for getting the word out about our options to vote and reminding our citizens that we will be voting for Sierra Madre City Council members. I do have some questions though about this year's voting options. I read on the Sierra Madre website that polls will be open to vote on November 3rd. When we voted in the primary, polls were open several days. Will that not be the case? Since we are all getting ballots to the mail, will we have to vote provisionally if we do not vote in person? My next question is about the drop-in ballot box in front of City Hall. Will it be empty daily, weekly? I have the feeling there are many people who will vote this way. How will you keep the integrity of the ballots? Okay, there's another city council candidate debate at the band shell this Saturday from 4 to 6, and I urge everyone to attend or stream it. Thank you. Okay, the questions were asked. I think the city manager responded to those, so I think she's covered on that one. So we won't attempt to answer them here. So let's move on. I'll close public comment. And we'll now move to our discussion items. And discussion item 1 is the future of the library building.
We have to take a vote on the consent items.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, let's do that. Do we have a motion?
I move to approve the consent items.
I'll second.
Okay, Madam City Clerk?
Yes, Mayor Kaposha,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Arizmendi,
Aye.
Councilmember Goss,
Aye.
Councilmember Harabedian.
Yes.
The motion to approve consent items 1A through 1C as presented was passed by unanimous vote.
Thank you. Okay, next item is the future of the library building. Now, before we start, let me just explain how this is going to work. Chairperson Proctor and I had talked a little bit, and this is how we're going to do it. We're going to hear the staff report, and at that time, I'll turn it over to Chair Proctor to see if there's any questions from the Board of Trustees. After they've asked their questions, we'll bring it back to the council for any questions. After we've asked our questions, we will open it up for public comment. After public comment, I will hand it back to Chair Proctor for deliberation and discussion amongst the Board of Trustees. And at the end of that deliberation and discussion, I'm hoping to get from the Board of Trustees through Chairperson Proctor a consensus about the direction that you are seeking. Then the council will discuss your recommendation. And I anticipate at that time that, we'll have some discussion, and it's okay to have some discussion back and forth. So if the council members have any question of Mr. Proctor and the Board of Trustees, let's go ahead and get those answered and or comments to them. And likewise, after we have come to a conclusion about what we think we would like to recommend, we will also allow the trustees to make any comments if there is something new that they haven't already commented on. So again, we don't want anybody repeating themselves, but what we're trying to encourage is some meaningful dialogue so that the city council can make a recommendation to staff as is asked for in the staff report. So are we okay with that? Everybody good with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, I think so.
Okay, so I believe our librarian, Ms. Smart, is going to give the staff report. Is that correct?
That is correct. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay.
On June 23rd, City Council formally requested that the Library Board of Trustees present their intention for the library building and adjacent lot, following a consultant's recommendation that the lot adjacent to the library might be included as a potential site for housing to fulfill the state's Regional Housing Needs Assessment, or RHNA. At an August 26th special meeting, the trustees discussed several options, and 4 members identified that they would like to pursue a modified option 3 to repair the current building and improve the adjacent lot to create outdoor program space, with the intention of allowing a citizens group to pursue a future ballot initiative for a new library building. 1 trustee voted for option 4 to fix the bare minimum of the current building and also to support a ballot initiative for a new library. This is not to say this is not a complex issue that has not been going on for some years, but it is recommended that the City Council discuss with the Library Board of Trustees and provide direction to staff. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Smart. Okay, I'll turn it over to Chairperson Proctor. And
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, so I'm going to, I'd like to sort of ask for comments from our trustees, starting with Patricia Hall.
if I can interject, Chairman Proctor, we're looking for questions of staff at this point, and comments will come and discussion will come after.
Okay. Okay, so we're looking for questions, all right? Patricia, do you have questions?
I'm unmuting. I was muted. Um, Actually, I don't really have a question, but when it comes to comments, I will have a comment.
Okay. Trustee King?
Hi, no, I have no questions at this time, but I will have a comment as well.
Okay. Trustee Spears? Ron?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yes.
Okay. No, I have no questions at this time, but I will
Okay.
have comments
And
later when we
Trustee,
get into costs and things.
all right, yeah. Trustee Zip?
I have no questions at this time.
Okay.
Thank
So now, what's our next move here? Is
You hand it back to me.
okay, Mayor?
I
It's
will
back.
now ask for questions of the city council. Any city council members, do you have any questions of staff?
I do, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Councilmember Goss?
Under alternative 1, it says in the second sentence, the design put forward recently is estimated to cost $17 million. I might have missed something. That's the first time I've seen that number associated with that. Where do we get that number?
Councilmember Goss, we took the construction estimate from the design submitted by the Board of Trustees to the bond underwriter that council allowed us to engage with, and they determined the total cost based on the construction cost, the interest on the bond debt itself, the cost to issue the bond, the cost to hire bond counsel, and the cost to underwrite, as well as secure the first year's funding. And that's where that total number came from.
A follow-up question?
Sure. Yeah.
Does that include the cost of housing the library holdings for the time it takes to build a new library?
Councilmember Goss, it does not at the time. We did not have a fully formed plan on what would happen in the interim between deconstruction and construction. That is not a cost that the city would likely recommend bonding for. That is something that would have to come from the city's general fund.
And no off-the-cuff estimates on that?
Councilmember Goss, I think it really depends on the plan that council puts forward. You could lease a space in town, downtown, that's could have a great collection of the books, or you could put books in storage and have a very limited selection. So it all depends on the plan that would be put forward and then ultimately approved by council.
Thank you.
Hey, other council members?
Mr. Mayor, I have a question just on, I wasn't sure from the summary, Ms. Smart, whether the 4 members who voted for option number 3 were also in favor, and I couldn't hear it at the end. Were they in favor of option number 3 and potentially going out to, having a process where they collect signatures for a ballot initiative? And if so, how does that work?
They had discussed a potential vote in possibly 2024. It was a modified version of option 3, not quite as extensive of a repair, but do the basic minimum improvements that would be required to make sure the building was safe. And then a potential future vote, they tossed around the idea of the 2024 date, but and intended to clarify their position at a meeting last week that unfortunately got canceled due to the Bobcat fire.
So that was the 4 that voted for option number 3. And if it's a reduced plan of improvements, then it sort of seems like option number 4 then. So is there much of a difference then in the 4 that wanted option number 3 at a reduced, expanse, and then option number 4?
I think that it was inferred that option 4 might include the sale of the back lot initially when it was first discussed. And I'm not sure whether the person that voted for option 4 recalled that. That was not clarified. but it was made clear by the trustees that selling the back lot was not part of their intention for the building.
Councilmember Harabedian, further clarification is option number 3 includes repair of the building as well as development of the back lot. Option number 4, as it was presented, because it's lower because, as our city librarian said, it included only repair of the building, but did not include
Not the back
improvement of
lot.
the back lot.
Right.
That's the.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you got it.
Okay, no, that actually makes sense. So, but the 5 and the 5 of them are here, so they can explain in just a bit. But the 5 seem to have left open the idea that there still may be a ballot initiative process at some point. That's correct.
That's correct.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem?
I think I'll hold my questions once I better understand as to if there's a definitive direction that the trustees are going to recommend, because a lot of my questions involve options 3 and 4 and hybrids and what ifs. So I'll hold on till we hear more discussion.
Okay, I have a few questions. I'm still not clear on option number 4. So with option number 4, the intent is to keep the lot, correct?
Originally, in the discussion of option 4, the funding for the fixes to the current building would be subsidized by the sale of the lot. So option 3, when in our initial discussion, is to include the back lot and make the necessary changes, but include the back lot in a full library campus. Option 4, however, did not include the back lot, and it may have been reallocated as far as RENA or other city needs.
Okay, I see. Okay, so yeah, reading down a little bit in the summary. So you say in preparation for the discussion, staff identified a number of alternatives. So the first proposed development plans for temporary improvements include a covered stage with lighting, sound amplification, seating, ADA components to accommodate outdoor library program. What is the estimated cost of that? This is temporary now.
We do not have a temporary cost outline at this time. It would depend entirely on the level of improvements. I think as little as a couple $100,000 to just put a tent and make the space ready, to as much as $1 million or more to really redo the back lot the way that we've talked about in the past. It would be up to council to determine.
Okay, so the next one is permanent improvements. So that'd be what you just said, the second option, which should be a little more substantial.
Yes.
Could be $1 million or so. Okay.
I think, Mayor, in general, we tried to set this up kind of as a continuum. The closer a potential vote would be, the less expensive and permanent improvements would be. The further away a vote is, the more investment we would recommend making to serve the public. So as you go from 1 to 4, you should see both of those move in opposite directions.
Right. Okay. So one thing that was suggested was 2024. That's 4 years out. We would spend a little bit more if we were to do that versus 2022. Okay. So I guess when we get to the deliberation part of it, we're going to hear hopefully a little bit more clearly from the Board of Trustees about really what they propose, which I mean, if I'm understanding, they're still intending to go for a parcel tax. And so then we'd be in a position to agree or disagree and give the city council direction. So the other question I have is, we got a memo right before the meeting from our city attorney about the Supreme Court declining to hear the appeal for that case about how a special tax can be supported by the populace. So can we get a quick readout on that from our city attorney, just to explain the implications of that? That's quite profound in my mind.
Absolutely, Mayor. So in June, the First District Court of Appeal heard a case called City of San Francisco versus all persons interested in matter of Proposition C. The court concluded that a special tax may be approved by a simple majority of voters if proposed by initiative. Now, this is a big deal because our prior understanding was that all special taxes had to be approved with two-thirds vote of the residents. The Supreme Court, the appellate court took a different position with respect to special taxes introduced by the voters. And the Supreme Court decided to not grant review of this case, I think 2 weeks ago, September 9th, I think was the date that it decided not to grant cert. So this is now the law of the land. And we only are required to secure a simple majority in order for this special tax to take effect.
Okay, thank you. Well, that certainly is quite profound. So it's a much lower threshold to get the approval for a new building or for, say, a parcel tax to improve the existing building, whichever is decided, if at all. Okay, so I don't have any other questions. So at this point, we'll open it up for public comment. So Mr. Milan, is there anybody on the line waiting to make public comment?
Mr. Mayor, you do have a couple callers for public comment.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and open it up.
Good evening, caller. We're currently taking comment for discussion items on the agenda. You will have up to 3 minutes to provide your comment. Please state your name and city of residence for the record. You may proceed.
Subsidized by the sale of the lot. So option.
Caller?
This is
Robert Stockley from Sierra Madre. I'm having a lot of internet problems, but I'm ready to talk about discussion item 1.
Yeah, go ahead, you're on.
So what I'm watching was, I'm sorry. So I'm calling in regarding item 1 and the lot and the building. As a lot of you know, I'm actively involved with the foundation, which was brought together to explore the possibility of a new library. Under these extreme circumstances we're in right now, that process was drastically, and suddenly suspended back in March. So my recommendation is that we not make one of these decisions at a time when we cannot seek widespread comment from stakeholders like the friends and the patrons, and to buy ourselves some time so that we can continue to explore the possibility of a campaign.
Thank you for your comment.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Stockley.
Good evening, caller. Please state your name and city of residence for the record. You will have up to 3 minutes to provide your comment. You may proceed.
Hello.
Caller, please state your name and city of residence. Please mute your feed to avoid feedback. Provide your comment. You may proceed.
Yes, my name is Tony Buck.
Caller, please state your name and city. Please mute your feed to avoid feedback. Provide your comment.
Yes, my name is Tony. Okay, I think I'm away from the computer. Hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
My name is Tony Buckner, and I hope you hear me.
We hear you.
Oh, good. I'm calling about the library building. A new library building is needed to meet identified library service needs for our community. Repairing, remodeling, and expanding the current building will not offer the number of square feet needed, nor a flexible floor plan for the future. Alternative 1, although I respect the need for repair and must be explored, is the option that has been studied, and it is a long-term solution. It's an investment in Sierra Madre that can serve for another 65 years. Sierra Madreans faced this dilemma in the 1950s, and because of their vision and willingness to tax themselves, generations of Sierra Madreans have benefited. I do not support identifying the lot behind the library as available for the city to meet RENA numbers. The city needs that lot for library services. The services conducted by the city have provided us with good information about how we can improve our case to the community. And because it is our intention for the Sierra Madre Library Foundation to join with the Friends of the Sierra Madre Library and other library supporters to gather signatures to place a parcel tax on the ballot, and we would like to do it very soon. We've talked about 2022, perhaps it's 2024. And allow the community, our community, to decide the future of the Sierra Madre Public Library building. I thank the council and the trustees for this opportunity to share my views.
Thank you for your comment.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Buckner.
Mr. Mayor, you do not have any more callers for public comment.
Okay, thank you. Okay, with that, we'll bring it back for discussion. So I'm going to turn it over to Chairman Proctor again and for comments and discussion amongst the Board of Trustees. And what we would like is, you know, a very concise recommendation from the Board of Trustees and, you know, that can inform us so that we can make a recommendation to staff on which way to go here.
Okay, I have a question, Mr. Mayor.
Sure.
I have some discussion points. Would it be appropriate for me to go first or go last? Or does it make a difference?
It's your call as chairperson. You can do whatever you want.
Okay, let me begin here by just throwing some things out here. Well, you know, this is a good thing to do right now because we were unable to meet last week because of the Bobcat fire. So, you know, we are at a bit of a disadvantage, but we can have that discussion now. My comments are that I agree with Mr. Stockley that we are a bit unsettled, but there does seem to be a commitment, or there does seem to be a lot of momentum behind the idea that the groups such as the Friends and the Foundation might go for a ballot proposition in 2022. So, you know, when I look at the four things, I think we might be looking at a hybrid of 3 and 4. That is, since we might go in 2022, and it doesn't make a difference to commit a lot of money to redoing the library, we would I think it's appropriate to ask the city to designate funds for the smallest number of structural improvements that absolutely must be implemented so that library patrons will be safe when they return to the building. Our own trustee, architect Rod Spears, has made a list of those things of what we absolutely must have. The second thing is designating funds from the city for the creation of an outdoor event space behind the library so the library can hold events for young people during the COVID crisis. Kind of a robust temporary space to facilitate these kind of events, I think, is something that, considering we don't know how long this COVID thing will go on, that's something I think it would be appropriate for the city to step forward and help us with. And the third thing is that I'd like to see the authorization of some kind of committee or study group to envision the 2 library properties owned by the city to come up with a plan for a single integrated community asset, a kind of library park and garden, so that after 2022, no matter what the outcome, the library can move forward swiftly for the plan to provide Sierra Madre with a really beautiful new civic asset. So all that said, Trustee Patricia Hall.
Excuse me, you know, I neglected to read some public comment that I got via email. So
Okay.
if you don't mind, can I insert that?
No.
now?
It's okay.
I realize this is a little awkward sometimes and I
That's
screw up
okay.
repeatedly on this.
We're all
but,
just making it up as we go along.
Yeah, but I want to just keep our intent pure here. So the first one is from Mrs. Trodson, Martha and Daryl Trodson. Please join with the Friends of the Sierra Madre Library to support a new library. Let's build on the work done by the trustees, friends, and foundation, as well as many concerned citizens to gather signatures for a petition on the 2020 ballot. As a resident, I'm very aware of the need to offer a safe and comfortable environment for our community library, as well as maintaining our property values in the future. I hope you'll offer your support and follow through to facilitate what needs to be done. Next one is from Mrs. Julia Brady. The Friends of the Sierra Madre Library supports getting signatures to get a new library on the 2022 ballot. We have financially supported an architectural two-story drawing of a well-designed new library, which includes a much-needed community room, as well as private study rooms in the children's library section, all designed for minimal noise from one section into another. This also includes the back lot to be renovated as a parking section and access to the drive-through drop-off for books and people. These plans have been presented to the public in forums as well as to the city council in a previous meeting. We oppose putting any more money into a building that will potentially be torn down in a few years. However, we do realize that we must keep the safety of the community and library staff in mind in the interim. Perhaps you can build the parking lot and invest in tents or temporary fixes in the meantime. In preparation for your meeting, I noticed that the links included to the meeting are ancient, like our 55 building. The old survey of the relocation was done 3 years ago. The library master plan was done 3 years ago. However, the electrical, plumbing, HVAC, and peeling paint do not seem to be fixed. The only report was a survey paid for the city and reported in March 2020. Everyone whom I'm personally talked to did not get interviewed. How much did that survey cost the city? I think most of the community agrees that something needs to be done. Even the candidates for the city acknowledged it this past Sunday's forum. The question remains, at what cost? When looking at the trustee minutes on alternatives, I debate the cost cited of 17 million in a 40-year bond. That was not the estimate given by our architect. Does not include donors, friends, civic clubs, and foundation who may decrease the amount of money. Yet, even if this is an accurate count, it's $20 per month per parcel that only goes towards investing in the 21st century library. I'm basically saying what I'm paying on my bills. Okay, well, I'm not going to read the rest of that. That's not really relevant, and it's taking a long time here. So I think Julia Brady made her points. So thank you for allowing me to insert that. So I'll turn it back to you, Chairperson Proctor.
Okay, thank you. So moving on with our comments and recommendations, Trustee Patricia Hall.
Well, I am the liaison, a trustee liaison to the foundation. They had a meeting on the 8th of September, in which they voted to go ahead with the 2022 initiative, and with support from the Friends. I feel that that's a good possibility, and we have the time to get the initiative on the ballot. And my feeling basically is, although we can make some decisions that are positive, it's basically I feel like my role is to present options to the residents of the city and let them decide by a vote whether they want a new library or not. And the only way to do that is get the initiative on the ballot. And after all, they're the ones that are going to have to pay for it. So I think this gives them us an opportunity and them an opportunity to work together and find out really if they want a new library. And I think we owe the city to give them that option to vote on that. So that's my feeling. It's very simple, but then I'm simple.
Do you have a thought about what should be done for the library in the 2 years between now and 2022?
Well, I think, yeah, some safety issues need to be, they need to be addressed. I mean, we addressed these 2005, 15 years ago. If you look at documents then, it was the same issues. And putting it off 15 years is a long time. So there needs to be safety issues imposed here. I think that hopefully it's just at a minimum where we're not spending millions of dollars to do this, because one figure I saw on one of those options was $5 million. And I thought, well, that's a bit much. And so I'd like to see some minimal stuff done that makes for the building to be safe for the patrons and of course for the staff. And maybe do a little something on the back lot so that Christine can continue her wonderful programs with her children. And but not something that's going to cost a lot of money. I think you can do something probably relatively inexpensive and still continue, meet the response. So, and maybe some things can be done at the park as well. In fact, they're doing one right now with the books or something.
Right.
And which is a great idea.
Okay.
So, and the foundation was formed with the idea of having a new library. So I think that's probably where I'm coming from. So maybe I'm not totally objective. I try to be.
Okay, thank you. Trustee King.
Hi, yes, I agree. I think we need to make it as clear as we can that back lot, that adjacent lot needs to stay with the library. I'm hopeful that somehow it can be used right now during the pandemic for outdoor events and programs for people who want to come and enjoy the library and be outside. And then whether it's 2022 or 2024, if we go to a vote, then we still have that wonderful space to use somehow for the new vision of the library. I think 2022 would be aggressive, just in my opinion, for a vote. I think it's great though. There's so many stakeholders in the community that want to do this and I support them and I love that passion. I mean, who could have foreseen the pandemic that we're dealing with? But I think there needs to be a lot of community outreach, and whether that's town halls or how you do that. But in the midst of a pandemic, as you all know, because you're dealing with this every day, how do you reach people and how do you get the word out in a way that people feel comfortable? So beyond that, I do also support doing some changes and repairs that are much needed for the library to protect Christine and the staff and the people who are working so hard there every day, and to make it safe so once it is open and available for those who do choose to come back inside, that they feel like they can do so.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Rod Spears.
Yeah, I was asked to take a look at some of the costs that we had paid for in the past, the Onyx report, and find out what in fact we could do to provide the safety for the staff and the patrons. My background is structural engineering, so I've done some of that, and I've gone in a lot of them when they didn't stand up during an earthquake. So I went through the minimal investment approach for Onyx, and it was basically over, I think, about a 3-year period they had estimated. And I took items like architectural and engineering and re-roofing and the external ADA, which is around the front of the building and the parking there, structural and seismic reinforcing of the building, asbestos abatement. And then I put on hold the things that I thought we could do without for a while, which was removing the interior stairwell, replacing the non-conforming stacks for the books, which is kind of interesting. And when you think about what's going to change, the books are going to be spread out farther, and there was only a small overstress in these buildings, in the building floor to carry the book loads. But now if you're going to go from 36 to, I think it's 44 inches, you're going to lighten the load on the floors, and chances are you may not have to do too much to them. I also included asbestos abatement, electrical systems upgrade, and the HVAC and ducting repairs that that need to be done. So I came up with the things I held and the things that that we included, and it was $683,000. Then the way that Onyx had handled this, on the next page, they had a 20% increase for contingencies, for things you don't know about till you take it apart and try to put it back together. And then I increased the cost a little by 3% a year, compounded for several years. And then there's another number that they have in here, which is moving, storage, temporary service. So I came out with a total of $854,600. Something I had talked about in one of our previous meetings is that, let's assume, because I don't have my calculator here, let's assume what I have here, which is 15,000, and it's good for 60 years. That's 250,000 a year. So if we go 3 or 4 years, it will pay for itself, really, in the safety and the cost. So we're not really throwing money away. And one thing, if we do happen to add in the stacks, they can go in the building as we have it now, or they can go in the new building when it's done, because they'll be reusable. So basically, I had something less than $900,000 to carry the library and make it safe for both seismic and lateral issues, as well as ADA, American Disability Act issues that that were required by 2 of the reports that we got on this. So that's about all I have to say at this point. I think we may, since we lost our meeting last week, we may need to get everybody together to finalize the wording and the costs and that type of thing.
Okay, well, thank you very, very much for your work there. And we're greatly blessed to have someone of your expertise come in and give us this an opinion that has a lot of integrity. So,
Chairperson Proctor?
Yes.
Hi, is it okay to ask a question right now of Commissioner Spears?
Yes.
Hi, Commissioner Spears. I just wanted clarification as to the estimates of the 800,000 plus. Is the assumption that that part of the building would stay in place if a ballot measure is passed and a new library was to be built on top of it? Because what I thought I heard you say is that there wouldn't, we wouldn't be wasting the money, would actually be invested. So is that the assumption?
Well, what I was saying was it costs about $250,000 a year to have a library, the one that we have. And so if we put that kind of money into it to expend it 3-4 years, then it kind of evens itself out. We put the money in, and some of the items can be reused, but I'm just thinking that it's not wasted money, because we get 4 more years out of it in a safe condition for both people with disabilities and for people that are using it at a point of an earthquake.
Okay, so the idea is not to maintain that structure and build off of it. The idea would just be, this is the amount of dollars we have for operations every year, and to continue that.
Yeah, and to get the things done that this report originally required, because we're really uncontrolled with these. The numbers that we have here from the Onyx report are several years old. Oftentimes I found that when you really get into a project, it costs more than what was originally intended. So we need to have an up-to-date cost estimate for this. And I don't know if we go back to Onyx or we work with our current architect and all.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Trustee Ziff?
Yes, thank you. I'm probably going to say pretty much what others have stated before me, but I just really feel that at this point in time, due to COVID and also because of the Bobcat fire and what that is going to cost the city in the next few years, I just feel it's really prudent for us to make the library safe, make it functional, make it aesthetically pleasing as possible, and do everything we can to utilize the back lot so that we can have events, have activities, and just make it a place that people can have pride in. And maybe in 2022 or 2024, the people of Sierra Madre can decide if they get enough signatures that they can vote to either raise the library or change the library in any way they want. But at this point in time, I just think it's a prudent thing to do to just fix what we have and try to make it work for everybody.
Okay, so I'd like to summarize what I've heard and what I, just taking all these opinions in order to communicate to the city council sort of what we're thinking on this. I'm hearing three things. Number one, there seems to be a critical mass to have a vote on a new library either in 2022 or 2024. Therefore, the best way forward would be to find what are the must-do things to the library to make it safe and safe for the people of Sierra Madre, so we can get to the 2022 or 2024 date. We're not asking for a big rehabilitation of the library, just enough to make it safe. The second thing is there seems to be a group opinion to ask for the funding to do an outdoor event space behind the library, so Christine can have a robust series of events for young people. Finally, the third thing is I believe there's a consensus that we all want to keep the back lot and consider some way of turning that into, one, I'm calling it the library park and garden space, one integrated space that gives the people of Sierra Madre a kind of a new and beautiful civic asset. Are we aligned on those three things? Okay.
Yes.
Mayor, okay. Mayor Capocha, does that give you some guidance?
I think so. I think it's pretty clear to me what your ask is. Are there any questions of the library board from our city council?
Mayor,
Okay.
I have a question for City Manager England, but not a question for the.
Yeah, that's okay. So with that, we'll just start our deliberation and you can ask questions or just make comments or whatever you'd like to do.
Okay, Mr. City Manager, since the question of the back lot has come up a few times and we had that as a discussion item for RENA, have there been other lots, properties identified for RENA numbers since our last meeting?
Mayor Pro Tem, we have alternatives identified. The RENA discussion will be back in front of council, I believe, the first October meeting. So though we've identified alternatives, council has yet to approve the plan to submit.
Okay.
I had a question, Mr. Mayor, of Trustee Spears, just to follow up on Mayor Pro Tem's earlier question. The 800 Trustee Spears, the 854,000 numbers. I want to be clear. Does that cover us on all the ADA issues, as well as all the pertinent safety issues that we're aware of?
I have that list in front of me. I just want to interject really
You're
quick.
mute. He's mute. He's speaking, but he's muted.
It does not include all ADA improvements. It is a minimum amount of ADA improvements to get us to the election.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was on mute. we're doing the external, the few parking spaces we have out in front and some of the sidewalks as far as slopes go, that kind of thing. But we're not covering, let's see, I've got some here that renovating the bathrooms or the sinks or things of that sort that most of the time is used by the staff anyway. But let's see what's there. And we're not resurfacing the parking lot, which had was going to have ADA access to the basement. Let's see what else. I think that was it. So that most of the interior ADA issues were not being done immediately.
Okay. Thank you.
Mayor, can I have a follow-up question to that also,
Sure.
please?
Yeah, please.
So with respect to ADA, if we are doing renovations, is there a time frame where if we don't complete all of the ADA recommendations that we're at risk for liability as a city? I mean, I understand we've been in this situation for quite a while, but if we start working on it and let's say the election isn't until 2024, do we get that much leeway time in not addressing, like say, the restroom ADA issues?
That's not my background, but I would say probably if you're working on something and you're continuing to work on it a little at a time, they usually cut you some slack until until you finish. We are on notice again with 2 reports that the ADA issues are issues that need to be solved. But I don't think that it'd be something I guess we'd have to talk to the building department about on how that kind of thing is. Do we get an extension because we're working on the items? And in fact, the ones that I told you that we were, let's see, that was another 100,000 plus 53,000. So, it would probably put us right at about $1 million if we had to finish all the ADA issues. But again, it's as I say, it's not my background, but we can check in with the city, the building department, and find out.
Mayor Pro Tem, we have all these items listed in our ADA transition plan. We are currently working through the transition plan to repair ADA deficiencies and violations that we know of. So completing the work and having in the transition plan will limit some of your liability, but you don't get to escape liability, particularly because we know of the ADA deficiencies that exist and we've documented them. So it's of critical importance for the city, whatever the decision is tonight, to continue to work through the ADA transition plan, not only to reduce our liability, but more importantly, it's just the right thing to do to ensure we have equal access to the building.
Okay. Councilmember Goss or Harabedian, any other comments or?
I have comments. I don't have any questions though, the trustees at this point.
Okay. All right, well, let's go ahead and discuss it and see what your thoughts are on what, well, again, it just sounds like it's pretty clear that the Board of Trustees would like to have a new library. It's a question of whether they'd go on the ballot 2022 or 2024. And of course, they want some immediate funding for the outdoor and want to keep the back lot. So I think that's, Chairperson Proctor summarized that. So what thoughts do you all have about that proposal?
And I can go. I appreciate the feedback, and it seems like a consensus from the Library Board of Trustees, and it makes sense to me. I think that everyone's correct that the world in which we live in now is much different than the world in which we lived in when we first talked about this. And I'd have to go back and see what date of that council meeting was when we first started talking about what we were going to do with the library. But we were looking actually towards November 2020 as being a time when this would be on the ballot. And a lot of things have changed. COVID has changed the world in which we've lived in. In many ways, Bobcat Fire was a material change to our city operations, our city budget, and in many ways was, I think, an event that a lot of people are holding their breath for a long time. And the question is, when is the next one? And so I don't think that the position that the trustees have is necessarily a bad one at all. I mean, I get it. It's kind of it's a position that leaves all the options open. I guess my concern at this point is putting aside whether a new library can be built or not. I really don't want to put $1 million into a building that I'm going to tear down. And that is what I'm struggling with here, because if we need to make these repairs, and we've been talking about these for a long time, and upgrades, then it almost is a path dependent question and answer for me. If I'm going to devote up to $1 million or more to make ADA repairs and other repairs to the roof on the existing building, as a fiduciary, I frankly think it would be pretty irresponsible of me to then be pushing for the eventual tear down of that building 2 or 4 years later. And so I think we need to have a real discussion here tonight about one or the other. I mean, I just don't, if I were the trustees, I would have probably come to this conclusion too, which is let's repair the building and still have this option open. As a council member, I just don't see how that necessarily can work. If we're going to go and put this on a ballot in 2022, then I don't see putting money into the building, a substantial material amount of money, because I do think that is, it's irresponsible fiscally. Now, I totally get the concern that we need to make sure our employees are safe, and we need to make sure that our building is up to code. But I think that we need to have a real discussion about, if we're putting a material amount of money into this new building or this existing building, I think that it really begs the question of why then would we 2 years later vote to tear it down and build a new one? Secondly, I do think that we need to consider the possibility that once we pay for the emergency response to the Bobcat Fire, the COVID response, and what we've been through the last 9 months, what our budget looks like, and whether or not the city is going to be in a position to necessarily, or we may be required to be going out and asking for more money in terms of a special tax for public safety. That is pressing on my mind, and I guess at the forefront of my mind, which is if we are going to be going out to the public in 2 years, potentially and asking for partial tax or a special tax of some nature to pay for fire, police services, how does that affect our library initiative? I don't have the answer to any of these things. This is just from hearing this discussion, my thoughts at this point, which is I think we're at a point where we can potentially, and Mayor Stockley's points and a couple other points have made the argument that let's not decide now. I don't necessarily disagree with him. I mean, because if I had to decide now, I would kind of want to decide right now whether we're going to put money into the existing building and forego a ballot initiative, or we're going to do a ballot initiative and we're not going to put money into the existing building. If I have to decide here tonight, I just don't think we can have our cake and eat it too, frankly. I'm not going to be on the city council that's going to need to deal with this, but I'm not going to put a new city council in a position where I've put them in a position where we're spending $1 million or $1.5 million or $2 million on a building that could be gone in 2 or 4 years. So that's where I am, Mr. Mayor. I think that, this is it's a conversation I'm really actually eager to hear what my colleagues have to say.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Harabedian. That's, I appreciate you stepping up and just opening up with that. And, it's an uncomfortable conversation. So thanks for that. So other council members, do you have anything to add on to what Councilmember Harabedian is saying, or any other ideas?
I'll throw in 10 cents. Yeah, very, very wise words from my colleague. I do believe that, you know, that's why we were elected to do this job. We have to make tough decisions. And it seems to me that this is what I've heard tonight, that all 5 members of the trustees are of the mind that we ought to that there ought to be a citizens group, the foundation, putting an initiative on the ballot in either 2022 or 2024. That I heard. I also heard from the chair of the foundation, Ms. Buckner, same thing. I also heard from the chair of the Friends of the Library, Ms. Brady, same thing. I take these people very seriously. So when I'm trying to balance out the short-term costs with the long-term, it seems to me that there is a very strong consensus here that we want a new library in the city. And frankly, now with the threshold of a simple majority, there's not much doubt in my mind that if that initiative does go out, pushed by a citizens group like the foundation, it will pass. So then we come back to the question, are we willing to do what's absolutely minimally necessary to keep the library up and running as long as it takes to see that initiative through? You know, it's a tough call. I think I'd like to take another look at Trustee Spears' list and maybe start cutting a little bit more. But we're talking about an investment for the city that would be around for 60 years, that will be in at least $15 million or more. So $700,000 or $800,000 seems like a relatively small cost to pay in the larger cost, when you're talking about the larger costing of the entire project. Furthermore, this council, I'm very proud to be a member of this council for many reasons. One of the reasons is with all the changes we've gone through, all the innovations that our management team has done, we are sitting with a very, very robust reserve. And I think that the Bobcat fire is obviously going to probably be what we'll be talking about in terms of that reserve. But this is one of those situations where it's a one-time deal. I mean, I don't know if any other council will ever be put in this position where we are said, well, the public will probably want a new library. All the community leaders want it. Will you bite down hard and spend some money in the short term to let that happen? I don't know if anybody's going to have to face that again. But I will, and I will support it. So I don't know if it's going to carry, you know, I don't know if that position is going to go around the table tonight. And I certainly respect my colleagues if they disagree, because this is one of those where, you know, it's a tough call. It's just a tough call.
So Councilmember Goss, just so I'm clear, you're in support of going to the people and asking for a parcel?
Well, I don't want to ask the people. We can't. I think it's pretty obvious that the citizens group, the foundation, is going to do it. So to me, the role we're playing here tonight is, are we going to put the Band-Aids on the library until they do that? And I am taking the view that we should.
Okay, the costs that were outlined by Commissioner Spears, basically, and yeah. Okay, all right. Okay, Councilmember Arizmendi, what are your thoughts going forward? I'm sorry.
So I think I think there's consensus in many ways, but I think my consensus is reached there in different ways. There are definitely a lot of factors that are involved with this discussion. RENA numbers were important to me. I don't like to have RENA numbers. I wish we didn't have to, but there are requirements for that. I'm happy to hear there are alternatives. The survey in itself, I think, spoke volumes as to what the residents are looking for, what they want, and what they're willing to pay for. But again, with the ruling on the citizen-led initiatives that we received today, that might change also. And then also COVID and the fires and the fiscal demands that we will have as a city. And some of those costs we still don't know yet. And I am concerned about our fiduciary responsibilities and how responsible we are with paying our dollars. All of that being said, I think in our maybe 2 discussions ago about this issue is that I was one that was personally not in favor of the city council putting this measure on the ballot. And I was really hoping that it would be citizen-led. And I'm happy to hear that that was definitely a consideration. I think the hope was that we were going to see it on this year's ballot so that we wouldn't have to wait so long as to determine what to do. Because in the meantime, again, we have a building that is unsafe, where we have ADA compliance issues, and we're still left as to what to do. With all of that being said, I do believe it's up to the residents to make that decision. I can feel personally about it one way, but the vote should be left up to the residents here in the city and as to whether they want to invest into that or not. So with the alternatives that were proposed today, I would have been ready, and I still am ready, to go with option number 3 or 4. I think even if we invested, let's say, $800,000 into the minimal renovations just to get us up to somewhat code and address some of the ADA issues and the safety issues, the citizens will still, at the end of the day, decide if we are going to scrap it. Hopefully that messaging will be out, is that we have invested $800,000 into the facility already. Is there still a desire to create a new facility? And I think that'll be important in the messaging. But in the meantime, I just don't think we have the time and the luxury to wait for 2 years, much less 4 years, as to what we do with a facility. So I do feel strongly about making at least the minimal renovations. I love the outdoor idea. I love being able to maintain whatever we do in this next 2 years, 4 years, if that ballot is passed, as part of whatever the overall vision is. And I think that's why my question was to Trustee Spears is, in this idea of the $800,000 investment, could that still be part of the core of a larger, bigger building or expanded building? But I'm understanding that it's not. That would have to be a scrap. And maybe there's consideration as to, I don't know, it's historic, and maybe we want to keep the core structure of the library. But in the meantime, I just don't think we have the luxury to wait, unless we just really don't allow for in-facility services and we stay in COVID mode, or we elect to do things more virtually. I'm a new audio listener for checking out books, and I can't believe it took me this long. But again, I know that doesn't serve the needs for all of the residents that utilize the library. So I do feel strongly about making an investment to at least fix some of the minimal repairs that are needed for ADA and safety.
Okay, well, thank you for that. I'm going to just weigh in here, and what I'm going to say is it's difficult to say, but I have some concerns. One thing a concern I have right from the get-go, and I've come out in favor of building a new library before, and I always told people that I certainly would spend the money myself. But here's my concern as a council member. First of all, the survey results were very weak, and it does indicate, I would suggest, that it's likely that a vote would pass at 51%. But really, think about that. Do we really want to force a tax on people with a 51% vote, where half the people would basically vote against it? The other thing I didn't see in the survey is that the survey doesn't seem to take into consideration whether there would be organized opposition. Now, we saw some organized opposition against something as, pedestrian as a utility tax, just keeping our tax level just the same as it was. But the survey also indicates two things that were pretty clear, is that more people felt like we should fix the building and perhaps enhance it than they did tear it down and build a new one. And one thing that was clear about the survey is that most people felt like don't tax for a new building. Nobody wants to see a tax. So again, I'm not against using a parcel tax to do this, but just again, I've got some other concerns. First of all, since COVID, and of course, because the project is potentially delayed for 2 years, we're going to have to spend more money than we would have otherwise to just meet our obligations here to avoid a costly lawsuit. The city has less money to spend and to help with the library than we did before. And because of COVID, we have even less. Because of the fires, we have even less. And just another concern, if we think ahead, how vulnerable are we in some other areas that we may not have thought about yet with even our infrastructure, our electrical components that we have in our pump rooms and things like that. And we had a little bump of an earthquake the other day. Are we really thinking about what the impact of an earthquake was? And that's why we intend to hold on to healthy reserves here. With regard to COVID, our city manager has informed us that we've been meticulously keeping track of our costs only to find out that we're not going to get any reimbursement whatsoever for that. And same thing with the fire. It's a substantial bill that we're going to have to pay for that. We don't know exactly what it's going to be for right now, but perhaps it's not as bad as some of us thought it was going to be, but it's still significant. Comments were made, I think, from Julia Brady, who's the chairperson of the Friends of the Library, that she believes the construction costs are too low. I believe that they're too high. I believe that they're too low. I don't think we've taken everything into consideration. I really believe that 2 years from the day we close the door on that building to the day we open it for a new one, 2 years is unrealistic. I was just saying, my cousin's been trying to build a house, and even 2 years to just build a house, he's struggling to do that. So we do have risks for cost escalation that I don't think we've dealt with. The city manager informed me that even the bonding agent was putting some conditions on a possible bond where we'd have to put our city hall up for collateral. So even with our current configuration of our public safety, there's a very strong likelihood that our public safety costs are going to increase over the years. So what this is all to say is that when you go put this out to the public in 2 years to bid on it, and if you did the same kind of a survey in the future 2 years with all these other considerations that we haven't really vetted thoroughly, what would that survey look like? I think only the result would be that it is going down. So at this point in time, I would really like to recommend that we don't move ahead with a parcel tax to build a new library. I would like the Board of Trustees consider a different recommendation, is to scale that tax back significantly to something that is, $5 a month or something, and use that money to improve the building we have and perhaps expand it. I know that that doesn't get the Board of Trustees and the Friends of the Library what they want, but it will be better than what we have today. And it would certainly be something that everybody could get behind and move ahead. So my fear is that we're going to just put a minimum into the building right now and deprive our citizens of use of an improved library while we continue to wrangle over this issue of a new library. And even if we move on this quickly, if we're going to do it, I say that we should absolutely not wait to 2024. We should do this quickly, because again, to me, it just doesn't make sense to leave us in the state that we're in for, 4 to 6 to 7 more years of basically an inadequate library while we're waiting for this wonderful new library. So I want to throw that back at the trustees to give their thoughts on that option to let's not build a new library. And believe me, I feel really bad about this because frankly, I was a little excited about it at one time, but circumstances have changed. It's nobody's fault. It's just a much higher hurdle to get to now, even though we got news from our city attorney that it's a lower threshold to get a vote through. So, so I'd like to just throw that option out there. I'm really worried that there will be opposition to this and you'll be back to square one in a couple of years anyway. And meanwhile, we just wasted more time.
May I make a comment?
Yes, please.
Okay. I want to acknowledge what you're saying. I think it certainly is possible. I guess what I want to say is all three of the recommendations of the trustees are things that we believe in no matter what happens in 2022, 2024. We still should have an outdoor space behind the library for events. We still should fix the library up so it's safe for patrons. We still should keep the back lot and turn it into a campus. So the city council can move forward with those three things, and then we can see how 2022 and 24 play out. Does that make sense?
It does. I'm just suggesting that if we were to be able to get on the same page and move ahead with a remodel in addition to the library, we could achieve the objectives of our library mission, and we could do it much, much faster, and the likelihood of success is much greater. Ahead with a new library, I just feel that there's risk to that, and I'm not sure that risk has been properly accounted for or acknowledged.
Yeah, I would agree. I think, I think in the next 2 years, it will become clear how, how the people feel, MCRI feel about that, and we should be sensitive to that. And nobody wants to go on a suicide mission here. So, we can do these three things and then continue to have a dialogue about what is the best thing for the future of the library. And it could very well be fix the current building and not go for a new library. And we could come to that conclusion at the end of 2021.
Can I make a comment?
Please.
Comments?
May I
from
have
the board of trustees? Or?
Yes, I have a comment. Mayor, well, we've been kind of banding this back and forth since 2005. So, but I'm pleased with the survey because it has pointed out our weak points of our case. And now we know the objections. So we need to overcome those objections through public education and political persuasion. And basically, that's how things normally get done. And I think 2022 is probably okay time-wise. And I think we have time because of this COVID and we're locked up here to strategize and plan exactly how we're going to do that. We did it in 2005, and we did get to most of the residents here, and it was a go in 2005. Yes, it was a lot cheaper because it was 2005. This is 15 years later, so the longer you wait, the more expensive it gets. And but it can be accomplished because we have very committed and dedicated volunteers. And I guess maybe I'm hoping I'm not a Pollyanna here, but I can see it happening and going forward, even at and I don't feel that because if we can pass it just with 50% plus one, that we're doing a disservice to the rest of the residents, because this is something that they can enjoy, their children will enjoy, and a real plus to this wonderful town. I mean, it's going to be a real plus. So, as Tony pointed out, for the next 50 years. And maybe I'm being selfish about this because I'm getting old and I don't know if I'm going to be here 2024. And I'd like to see this happen before then. So I'm really confident that it can happen. Some people have pointed out or were concerned about the amount of money on the tax or the investment in the community, as I call it, of $20 a month, whatever. But on my street on Montecito here, we sold 3 or 4 houses in the past year and a half. The minimum amount was $966,000, which had to be gutted because it was built in 1939. And the highest was 1.7 million. And these people are moving in there with children that are of the age, low teens, 9, 10 years old. And this is going to be a plus for them. I know that they're going to want to have a nice library for their kids. And if they can afford to buy houses like that, they can afford the $20 a month. So I'm not concerned about there being a pushback on that $20 per month. Maybe I should be, but I'm not when I see what's happening here in this town. Yeah. So it's not exactly a poor town. And that's my feeling. If you want to predict the future, you got to create it. You know what I mean? Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. And I hope you're here for the next 20 years, whether or not.
Oh, what a nice thing for you to say. I will love you forever.
Okay, other comments from Board of Trustee members, and then we'll bring it back to the council one more time.
This is Rod Spears. Just make a comment. I thought I heard someone say that I thought that the costs were too high. That if that's what I said, it's exactly the opposite. Usually when I see architectural cost estimates, they generally are a little on the low side. And I've added in some interest to take care of that in my numbers.
No, it wasn't with regard to what you said, Commissioner Spears. I was just commenting on the total cost of the new construction. So I don't know if you're saying the same thing or not, but I have it's a risk factor that the cost will escalate beyond what was estimated. That's all I was trying to say.
Sure.
Hi, my head is kind of swimming with all of these options, and I certainly appreciate all of you taking the time to help think through this. I have to go back to, I think, what Rich was saying, that there are so many stakeholders who see this vision and want to do extensive community outreach to help explain and promote and talk about and to go forward to try for that new building. So I feel like I support that. And I don't know, whatever we can do to keep it going and keep it safe right now is what we need. There's just so many unknowns. We're hypothesizing on so many different things. Yeah. And that's what makes this so incredibly difficult. But, and that probably doesn't help, but thank you.
I might add as well, I think we have to think about the total vision of what we're doing. When you drive down Sierra Madre Boulevard, you can drive right by the library, not even notice it's there. You can see the city hall. It looks beautiful. The landscaping, the building, the structure. And I think when we start talking about cost, even though we have all these other issues, you have to think about the future and what we're doing, not just for the children, but for all the people that live in this town, to have a place where they can meet, that they can be proud and feel just like this is their city. In my mind, I'm thinking right now, when you think about past civilizations, what do they show you? They're great monuments. Well, right now, all you look at is Hotel Shirley, or you look at some of these old homes. So, this could be a monument to our city. When people think about Sierra Madre, they think about what a great library they have and what a great facility it is for 60 to 100 years. So I just wanted to think about the whole vision. Don't forget about that. You know, if you just think money, you don't do anything.
Okay, well, let's bring it back to the council for discussion. You know, we're trying to give a recommendation to staff on how to proceed. So, what's your thoughts here?
Yeah, there's a lot, that we've talked about that makes, again, I just don't, I guess to Chairperson Proctor's point, can we do those three things? Fix the building, start doing the outdoor stuff. And I don't even know what the third one is, I'm blanking, but can we do those three things and then figure out whether the initiative takes place? Again, I'm struggling to figure out how you would do that, right? You would, because this seems more than what Rod's going to propose, which is the 800,000 or so to do the ADA improvements. This would be starting with the outdoor, starting with the new vision of the library and outdoor space, and all that sounds really exciting. And so I guess I go back to my original thought, and I'm still not seeing how we could do both. I think that if you do that, like if we go down this road and we as a council could decide tonight, okay, let's start doing the outdoor vision and start using the back lot. I, for one, think that back lot should stay a library property, and we should utilize it for the library. So I am with you guys on that. If we go down this route of fixing the library building, starting to do the outdoor stuff, I think that puts you guys in a real tough spot to go out and then want to build a new library. So I'm kind of coming back to this, what do we really want to do? We could never stop a citizens initiative, and it does seem like you guys have a lot of leaders that are on board that want to do the citizens initiative. And so if that's where you guys want to go, I just don't understand why we would spend, I could see spending, and my other council members have already said that they're willing to do that, spending a minimum amount to make ADA improvements. But I don't really see how you could do that and the outdoor kind of space and the improvement, So I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. I think if you do what Chair Proctor was saying, which is, start with this outdoor vision and kind of building a newer library, I think that really, I just don't see how you get that initiative off the ground. I think it really works against you. So I guess I just come back to, to the mayor's point, is it feasible to do the initiative? Well, look, I'm going to kind of leave it to you guys at this point, because if you think it's feasible, you think you can pass it, make it work. But in the meantime, what exactly are we going to do with the library? And to the mayor's point, if we really want to start on this journey of building an outdoor facility with that back lot and making it really nice, we can spend $1 million or $2 doing that, and maybe then put a parcel tax on for a lot less to then finish it or something. But because I do think what we do now is going to decide what that ballot initiative looks like. I think that was a good point. It's an option I hadn't really thought about, which is a lesser amount to potentially just make a better library using the existing bones. So I guess it would be easy for us just to say, okay, let's give staff direction, let's start improving the building, and then see what happens in 22. I don't think staff would like that very much, and I don't think the citizens would like that very much. So I guess I'm trying to arm wrestle with you guys tonight so that we can figure out what we really want to do. Because if the answer is collectively, I'm hearing a lot about ballot initiative in 22. If that's the case, then let's talk about minimum money. Let's talk about we're fixing the very bare bones minimum stuff that we're going to do until 22. Because I don't see why we would spend $1 more. So that's where that's where I am.
Mayor, can I Can I clarify one point?
Yeah.
And I apologize. I probably should have done this when you brought it back to the city council. The estimate that Trustee Spears put together, and he has a lot of expertise. I think staff views that as if we were repairing everything and a vote was to take place multiple years in the future, 26, 28. What Councilmember Harabedian, what he ended with is actually the route staff would take. If a vote's going to take place in 22, we would continue to work the ADA transition plan, spending the minimum amount necessary to try and make the ADA compliance as it is in our transition plan. We would also use some outdoor activities because we do need to provide service to our residents outdoors, and that would also be temporary. So for staff, if the idea is a vote is in 2022, then how Councilmember Harabedian ended it is absolutely right. We would do the minimum improvements waiting for 2022. And I don't think that 800,000 number is a 2022 number. We would do less than that. I think it is probably a 2024 or 2026 number, however, because we wouldn't want to be in going any longer, another 4 years without having a fully functional ADA and seismic safe building.
If I can jump in again, the way I see the biggest risk is that if it did fail, if you go and, you cannot convince the voters to build a brand new library, then you're really stuck then, because I think you're going to have a very hard time coming back the following 2 years and saying, well, okay, we didn't get the new library, so how about chipping in to remodel the existing library? Meanwhile, we're pouring more money into the building and perhaps in an inefficient way. So, I mean, that's a risk that, we can't stop the trustees and the friends of the library from doing. I mean, you can disregard our concerns and say, you're wrong, we know this is going to pass, and go ahead and do it. But again, it's just you are incurring that risk. And I just, like I say, I just think that in my mind, I'd rather go for the sure thing. And our perspective on the council is a little bit different. Again, some of you mentioned the constituents or stakeholders that you have. Remember, our concerns are much, much more broad. We're concerned about public safety and other things and infrastructure in the town and things like that. So I really respect that you are advocates of the library and that's your main concern. But for us, we're thinking more broadly, and we're very concerned that if we pass a substantial tax to fund the library, which is going to be more than what you had proposed this time, because we're going to make less of a contribution to it. That's for sure. You got to come up with more money. So will that cause the future council problems when they're going to try to have to fund public safety when that becomes necessary? So it's a much broader concern. So again, I'm just saying that a real safe road to take would be to plan on asking the voters for some money to remodel and expand and make our library something memorable, which it could be. It just doesn't have to be the vision that you guys are proponents of, which is a brand new, striking design that catches your eye when you come down the street. So I'll just leave it at that, and let's just hear what the other council members think about it, what direction we want to give to staff at this point. But I'm leaning towards just what Councilmember Harabedian is suggesting, is that we just do the absolute minimum right now if we can't convince the Board of Trustees to back off on the plan to go forward and put something on the ballot to fund a brand new library.
Can I make one comment, Mayor?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. I certainly concur. I hear what you're saying. I think you're making one slightly mistaken assumption. At least here's my reading of the survey. You said that if we go out and ask for the new library and it gets turned down, then we're essentially dead because the people are not going to want, to put more money into this library. My reading of the survey, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that one of the strongest things that came through that survey was people, and this is a challenge for us getting a new building.
Mhm.
People love that building.
Yes.
They like the library. They have a tremendous amount of affection for it. So it could be this election, it becomes a referendum on, do we want a new library or do we want to repair and enhance the old library? It could be a vote to say, no, let's repair and enhance. I don't think that there's going to be, well, we just give up on the library. People, you know, one of the biggest challenges we have with the new library is, well, wait a minute, you're taking away the thing that we love. So this could be an expression of love for it. So anyway, I just want to, that's my reading of the survey.
No, point well taken. You're absolutely right. I do agree with you on that. The citizens definitely expressed that they love our library and are fond of the building as well.
Right.
You know, some other options, I mean, it's always, you could put two competing ballot measures, one to renovate the library and one to build a new one. And with their associated costs and see which one. I'm just suggesting that facetiously because we've been told that when you have competing ballot measures, they both fail. So I'm not sure you'd want to collect signatures for something like that. Or the council could put something on, which would be a 2/3 pass threshold, and you could put one that's a 51% that costs more, but takes only a 51%. So these are all things that the future council can talk about. But anyway, just back to the point is my recommendation is we spend as little as possible right now because it appears that the library board wants to move ahead with a ballot initiative to build a new library.
So Mayor, if I may comment then, you know, my preference would be to renovate as best as we can the existing facility and the existing structure. Despite if something comes up in 2022 or 2024, I think we should focus on what needs to be done now. And I just don't like the idea of minimum renovations and repairs if we have especially 4 years, because if this goes on the ballot 2022, this is not going to be staff driven. This is going to be citizen driven. It has to be on that timeline, or else you miss again another 4 years and we are in an unsafe and a high risk facility. And I just wanted to underscore the fact, in 2 years, we very well could be putting on the ballot the need for a property tax for public safety. Everything that Councilmember Harabedian had spoke to earlier and everything that's happened in the last 6 months, 8 months, there are costs that we have not been able to really project, and we potentially could have more. And what we have seen over and over again is really the support for maintaining our own police, maintaining our own fire department, and to me is an extreme priority in terms of the city. So my ideal would be to renovate and repair what we have in our existing structure. However, that doesn't take away the fact that citizens have the right to put any ballot they want to on anything they want to on the ballot, as long as they have the right amount of signatures and go through the right process. So if that is the potential of what we're seeing here, I would say I'm okay with minimum investment and seeing what happens in 2022, but I think it's just taking away from what we really can be able to do in the next 2-4 years to really maximize what we have, and even use that outdoor space in the back lot area to create that open space.
Okay, well, it sounds like you and I are on the same page then. Listening to
Can I comment, please?
yes. Mm-hmm.
I see a kind of consensus among the four of us in as much as it seems like if we're going to spend money now on the library, we want to keep it minimal, given the fact that there will be a citizens initiative most likely in 2022. The foundation is set up to do it. They are fully capable of running that initiative. There is no doubt in my mind there will be a very robust effort. But it's neither here nor there. That is a citizens initiative. We have no control over it. We're not voting on tonight. So the real question is, what do we want to do with the existing facilities? I also agree with all of you. I want to keep the lot. That's part of an asset for the library. I heard from the city manager that minimal is really not as much as the number Trustee Spears put out there. So maybe we could hone down that number a little bit, maybe from the city manager, maybe from our librarian, get something more tangible there, and maybe we could agree to do that. And at least we'll have a library that when COVID, if it ever does go away, when we finally open our library up, it'll be, at least semi-functional, which is kind of the way it's been for several years. I don't really, I see a false dichotomy here. Well, we either have a big library or we have a kind of no progress. I don't agree. I think we could keep this library and basically tread water on it for 2 to 4 years. If a new library is the will of the people, I don't see how we've lost a lot. So anyway, I'm willing to support much. I didn't come into the meeting with a thought that we should spend a lot of money on like an amphitheater and extra things that I see in some of the options. My thought is just to keep this library up and running until the citizens initiative takes over. And that's all, like Mayor Pro Tem said, that's their business. We're not going to be pushing a ballot initiative. I'd like to hear what everyone else says about that.
Well, I'm not hearing a lot of difference here. So keep the lot. Spend some money to do the outdoor programming, but all temporary, nothing permanent. And I won't necessarily say minimum, but I think the city manager has to have a little bit of leeway. With the direction is that the expectation is that the library board of trustees and the Friends of the Library are going to put something on the ballot. So, Mr. City Manager, we appreciate your judgment in doing what you feel is necessary for safety and ADA to get us to that point. So I don't want to, use the word minimum, but we don't want to spend money unnecessarily. So, Councilmember Harabedian, do you see that is the consensus here?
Yes, I do. Yeah, I'm on board with that.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem, Councilmember Goss, did I just summarize that?
Yes, perfectly.
Okay, now I'd just like to ask the city manager, is that clear direction? Are there any other things that you would ask of us to guide you going forward?
Yes, Mayor, that's very clear direction. Staff has received it. We're good.
Okay. Okay, well, I think we can wrap that up and move on to the next item. Okay, can I just take just 3 minutes here because I just want to fill up my glass with water?
Yeah, can we take a 5-minute, I was going to say, could we use a bathroom break?
Yeah, okay, 5 minutes.
The trustees unanimously chose option 2, and staff drafted the attached ordinance. Staff recommends the City Council consider and introduce the first reading of ordinance number 1433.
Okay, with that, questions, I'll turn it over to the Board of Trustees, Chairperson Proctor.
Okay, this is pretty straightforward. Any questions from Trustee Patricia Hall? Patricia? Okay, questions
I'm
from,
turned on now. Yeah. No,
Okay.
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
okay. Trustee King?
No questions, thank you.
Okay. Trustee Spears?
No questions.
Okay, and Trustee Ziff?
Nothing at this time.
Okay,
Later, he has something later.
I have no questions as well. So back
Okay.
to you.
Thank you. All right, any questions from the council?
Questions?
Well, I'll go ahead and ask a question. I really don't understand the difference between 2 and 3. You are recommending number 2, but to amend the Sierra Madre Municipal Code to clarify the trustee's role as solely an advisory body, but beginning of the paragraph, it says in practice, the trustees have acted as an advisory body. So what's the difference between 2 and 3?
So I will say that when the last long-standing library director was here, Carolyn Thomas, the Library Board of Trustees was operated as a trustee body. They fulfilled all of the reporting requirements. They signed their own financial records, expended their own funds. Somewhere in the time period between where she left and the 5 directors in between her that only stood for less than a year and myself, we slipped into more of an advisory role in practice. And the difference being most primarily financial, where the Library Board of Trustees would recommend their own budget to council instead of it coming directly from staff. And it is the advice of the city that the human resources responsibilities be amended from the educational code and remain with the city of Sierra Madre instead of being part of the trustees' responsibilities.
Okay. So with regard to the budget, if the Board of Trustees recommends a budget, how's that going to work? Does the city council tell the trustees how much general fund money they're willing to allocate? Then the trustees will put the budget together based on what additional money comes from the friends or other donations. Is that the intent?
Yes, Mayor, that's essentially correct. What the council will do is appropriate a certain amount of funding from the general fund and to the library fund, and then it will be up to the trustees to determine how best to expend those funds.
Yeah. Okay, so that is same thing with hours of operation. We just stay out of it. The trustees, along with the librarian, just decide when the library is going to be open, when it's closed. As long as you can meet the budget, it's your issue, right?
Yes,
that's correct.
True.
Okay, good. Okay. Those are my questions. Any other questions from the council?
Nope.
Okay, well, with that, we'll open it up for public comment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just bear 1 second while we verify any callers. Mr. Mayor, it does not appear that you have any callers for public comment on this item.
Okay, well, we'll bring it back from discussion. I think we know the recommendation of the Board of Trustees, but let's give them an opportunity to comment. Is there anything else they'd like to say on this? Okay, Mr. Proctor, I'll turn it over to you.
Sorry, are there any trustees? I would just say that good news here. These are relatively small changes. The trustees are both deferential and collaborative with both the library staff and the city council. So when this budget is determined, it won't be us just throwing a thunderbolt down from the top of Mount Olympus. It'll be a group decision, and we will come to it will be something we all agree on. Any other trustee comments?
Oh, I just have one. Years ago, I was on trustees for 8 years at that time. And it was administrative board as opposed to an advisory board. And it always had been that. And I was really surprised when we talked about this recently and found out it was an advisory board. So somewhere in between that time it changed. But when I'm back, I'm happy it's back to the way it was. I think it's more advantageous to the trustees and also to the city council.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Rich.
Great. Anyone else? Okay, I think you're all, we're good.
Okay. All right, City Council, any comments?
It was helpful to see the enumeration of the responsibilities, but I'm happy to hear this is supported by the trustees, and I look forward to supporting it as well.
Okay.
I agree. I mean, I was happy that this is where the trustees came out. I mean, I could have seen a scenario where, maybe Sierra Madre, given the plans to go down, building a new library, maybe a library district with a formal board elected could have been in the cards. But I think that this is, good. Keeping essentially the status quo of the board and just memorializing it, I think is good for the city. So thank you guys, and I'm in support.
Okay, Councilmember Goss.
Me too. I have nothing to add.
Okay, well, with that, do we have a motion?
So move to approve as proposed.
I'll second that.
Okay, Madam City Clerk, can you please call for the roll?
Mayor Kaposha,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Arizmendi,
Aye.
Councilmember Goss,
Aye.
Councilmember Harabedian.
Yes.
The motion to approve the ordinance 1433 as presented for first reading was approved by unanimous vote. Mayor, you're on mute.
Okay, thank you, Madam City Manager. Last item on the agenda is the day trust funds. The council is asking that we consider an MOU. So is this again, Ms. Smart, you're going to?
Yes, Mayor. So as background, 2 long-term residents of Sierra Madre, Robert A. Day and Robert S. Day, provided a charitable contribution to the Sierra Madre Library in an amount of approximately $750,000. The Declaration of Trust has been attached in your agenda packet for review. The city began receiving initial distributions from the trust in December of 2016. The most recent fund allocation of more than $600,000 was received in January of this year. All funds received have been deposited into the library's Gift and Memorial Fund and have remained in the fund since deposit and invested in the Local Agency Investment Fund, or LAIF. A final distribution should arrive within the next 18 months, but is expected to be comparably small at less than $1,000. With the bulk of the funds received, the Library Board of Trustees began intense discussions in February 2020 on the best way to invest and honor the gifted monies, and were advised that an outside organization such as the Sierra Madre Library Foundation would have the capability to seek a greater return on investment than the trustees could as an entity of the city. On August 26, the Library Board of Trustees voted to approve the transfer of funds to the Library Foundation and form a committee to amend the MOU which the Library Foundation proposed. It is the recommendation that the City Council discuss the Library Board of Trustees with the Library Board of Trustees and provide direction to staff.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so with that, I'll turn it over to the Library Board of Trustees. Are there any questions for the staff?
So this is trustees asking questions?
Yeah.
Okay. So should we, Trustee Patricia Hall?
You know, I don't think I have a question at this time. Maybe a little bit later. I have to think about this a little bit more because I'm not quite sure. I'm supposed to ask of the staff question. Now, I will have one question then. That money that is deposited in the gifts and memorial, what level of interest is that earning? Gabe?
So, Chair Hall, the funds deposited in gift and memorial are invested through LAIF, as the city librarian said. The current rate of return, actually, usually the rate of return is always between 2% and 3%. Right now, it's probably closer to 2 than 3.
Okay. That's my question at the moment. Thank you.
Okay, Trustee King?
No questions at the moment, but perhaps after further discussion, and I'm assuming we're also going to hear from the city attorney, so that may help as well.
Okay, Trustee Spears?
Yes, if we transfer it or if the money gets transferred to the foundation, they are allowed then to invest them at higher rates. And what is that rate, if anyone knows?
So the well, actually, maybe I'll let the city attorney, I'll let him answer that as opposed to me. Alex, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, sure. So it's not really about the rate. It's the limitation is on what the foundation can actually invest in. And that's governed by the government code. All public agencies are subject to limitations on the types of investments they can make. And so because this money was bequeathed to the Sierra Madre Public Library, which is a public entity, part of the city of Sierra Madre, it's subject to those same limitations. And if we were to transfer those funds to the foundation would also be subject to those same limitations because that money comes from the city.
Okay. I don't understand that. I don't agree with that, but that's all right.
Well, that's okay. Trustee Hall, do you have a question of the city attorney?
Yeah, because I'm probably misunderstanding you. I have no legal experience at all, but endowments, the money, if it was transferred to the foundation, goes into an endowment, a Robert A. Day fund, which obviously hasn't been done because that was one of the wishes of the donor. And I think we need to not forget here that we need to honor the wishes and the intent of the donor. And because this is not really public funds, this is private funds. This is donations, it's not public funds. Public funds I see as tax dollars, and with that, it's different. Endowments are different than a wealth management kind of thing. Wealth management deals with assets of living individuals or groups. Endowment management is dealing with the assets of dead persons, and the wealth managements are concerned with the growth of the portfolio.
Okay, Ms. Hall, I have to interrupt because you're into more of a deliberation. We're just asking questions of staff.
Oh, okay.
If you have another question, go ahead and ask it. And we'll come back to you and you'll get to, make your case.
Okay,
Okay, so
thank you.
finally, yeah. Trustee Ziff, a question?
Yeah, I have no questions at this time.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, it's back to you.
Okay, so questions of the council to staff.
I have a question, Mr. Mayor. So can I just get a little background / history as to why the request for the transfer is being made? Just so I know functionally, what sort of difference would this make, and why is it being requested to be transferred?
Thank you. The initial discussion surrounding the fund, when we received the main distribution of funds, it was determined that in consultation with members of the Library Foundation, that the money could be invested in such a way that the city could not. And so the initial discussion surrounding moving the funds was that we could, I believe the term is more aggressively invest the money and get a rate of return more like 6 to 8%, which would increase substantively the donation, and we could see the gift remain in perpetuity. That has been determined by our city attorney that is not the case. And so, but unfortunately that judgment came down on Friday from the city attorney. So we're trying to, at this point, make a better determination of what should happen at this point.
So I guess then I have a question for the trustees. If the answer is legally the foundation couldn't invest it any differently than the city, would you, as the trustees, still want to transfer it to the foundation? Or, because that makes sense to me. Thank you, Ms. Smart. I get that. I didn't realize that necessarily was the point, which was to try to get a better rate of return. Heck, I've been saying for years now, I wish we got better rates of return on our funds. I mean, it's still crazy to me that we don't get higher returns, but
well, yeah, that was the point.
Yeah, so, and I guess the question you guys, so if the answer, and I think the legal conclusion from the city attorney based on my reading is correct, but putting that aside, if that is the correct conclusion, do you guys still want to transfer the money? And if so, why? And Mr. Mayor, I'm not trying to sidetrack this and give it back to him, but it's a question that I guess I'm just still, if the point of transferring it was really for this interest rate difference, then what are we gonna, is this kind of a moot point?
It's a good question because it could sum it up very quickly here for us.
Yeah.
So appreciate
Yeah,
it.
I would agree I concur with what the mayor just said. This is the crux of the whole thing. Clearly, we want to honor the intentions of the Day family in the most simple, straightforward, and transparent fashion. And there's no reason to transfer the funds to the foundation if it makes no difference at all in the rate of return.
May I add something here? Even if we do assume that it was the trustor's intent to place it in some kind of endowment outside of the city to get a higher rate of return, the trustor can't do something that's contrary to state law. And if state law says that you can't, if funds that are granted to the city, in which case they are under subdivision G of this trust, if funds are granted to the city and the trustees are now the custodian of those funds. And as custodians, they can't then transfer it to another entity and transfer over that custodianship. They remain custodians, and as members of a public entity, they're subject to the government code.
Does that make this whole proposition moot? Is this a meaningless discussion?
It kind of seems so. I mean, look, I think that there's always the pathway, which was alluded to, that the board of trustees could go and seek a separate legal opinion from the attorney general, which is you guys are free to do. And so I guess we could have that discussion after. If you aren't satisfied with our city attorney's answer, then you could go to the attorney general or some, I think that would be the only other authority. And if you got a different answer, then maybe we could discuss this, but it just seems like it's a moot point. until you guys are either satisfied with the Attorney General or our city attorney's answer on this.
Another potential alternative is if whatever outside investing body can guarantee that they are going to comply with the government code investment standards, that would also work.
And do you have any experience with that having happened before? And was there an increase in the rate of return?
I haven't seen it personally.
Okay.
Well, my idea about all this in light of what we just learned from the attorney, it seems like it is a moot point. It's like, why move money if it's not going to make any more money? It's safe where it is, and it's still following the intent of the day fund of their intention.
Okay, well, again, we're really still at the point of asking questions. So let's finish up with the questions and we'll open it up for public comment and bring it back for conclusion.
Okay.
So at this point, okay, the only other question I have, well, I guess I don't really need to ask it because I was responding to I was thinking about the letter that was written from, who wrote it? Oh, Tony Buckner to the council. And so again, I think our city attorney has addressed that, and I'm really not of the opinion that I would want to, buck the advice of our city attorney. So I don't have any questions. So there's
Actually,
no.
Mayor,
Yes.
can I just a follow-up question to the comment that City Attorney Alex made? So when you're saying there is a possibility that funds can be transferred to another entity if they follow the code. So let's hypothetically say that would happen. This MOU would absolutely be necessary, correct? Okay. And then I think Trustee Spears asked a question too. I mean, I think we'd assume that whoever we're transferring it to has experience with this type of investing. So, okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay, so with that, shall we open it up for public comment?
Mr. Mayor, 1 second while we verify if there are any callers. Mr. Mayor, it does not appear you have any callers for public comment at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Milan. We'll bring it back to, I'll bring it back to first to the Board of Trustees for any additional comments. I think we heard Mr. Ziff. I think you gave your opinion on it, and you're free to express it again or just move on.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, did we get any emailed comments on this one?
Did we?
Yes, there was one.
Do you have it, Madam?
I do.
Why don't you read it?
Okay. This comment was sent in by Rob Stockley of Sierra Madre. Honorable Mayor Kaposha and council members and Library Board of Trustees, Proctor and Trustees. Although the city administration and Board of Sierra Madre Library Foundation may disagree about the nature of an investment strategy for the day trust funds, there is still a path towards clarifying the possible options available to the city council for the best way to ensure and support the legacy of the days. In the meantime, I recommend that the city council direct city administration to move the full amount of the day fund trust funds from the library gift memorial fund and established a separate restricted account similar to an endowment fund within the city, from which the day trust directed 25,000 annual distribution to support and enhance library programs can be made. The generosity of the days will endure for decades and is therefore imperative that the funds be segregated so that future city administration and councils know the purpose and intent of the donors and can fulfill the day's intention to enrich the library for future patrons until the trust funds are exhausted. Thank you, Rob Stockley.
Okay, thank you. I'm glad you remembered that because I did read that and so I forgot all about it. But okay, so with that question, I'd just like to ask our city staff about that possibility. Does that make sense? I mean, he brings up a point there that if we just lump it into the normal endowment fund, a couple of generations in the future, they won't remember that the intent was to provide the $25,000 a year as part of the endowment. So is that a relevant question or concern?
Yes, Mayor, I think so. And without too much inside baseball here, the agent is the Board of Trustees, the fiduciary agent. They created the fund that we put the funds into at their direction. If they would like to honor the requests of the donor, they can create endowment fund for the Board of Trustees use as the donor desired. But it would be up to the Board of Trustees to provide that direction.
Okay. Is that, because that particular ask is not on the agenda, is that something that we can actually discuss and act on?
Mayor, I think based on the answer I provided, I think the chair of the trustees could agendize that at a future meeting if he so desired.
Okay. So, yeah, Mr. Proctor, what do you think about that? We shouldn't really discuss then whether you think that's a good idea or not, but would you like to talk about that at a future trustee meeting?
Yes, I definitely would. I think Rob's Stockley's idea is something that is worth considering and appears to have a lot of merit.
Good. Okay. So back to just deliberation over whether we transfer the money to the lost my thought here, whatever the
foundation.
Foundation. Yeah. Okay. So go ahead, and if any of the trustees would like to comment on that, go right ahead.
Okay. All right, Trustee Patricia Hall. I think you might be muted. Patricia?
She is muted. I can see that.
I think you're muted, Patricia. Can you unmute?
Muted. Yes, I am muted. Now I'm not muted. Yeah, no, it's a little disappointing to us, I think, but I mean, I didn't have, it would have been nice to be in the Library Foundation as a endowment. And endowments, are invested with the interest to preserve the portfolio. Either that or the Friends of the Library, which was another 501c3, because he had indicated in the trust that it be a charitable organization. So that's where I'm coming from. Thank you very much, Rich.
Okay. All right, Trustee King.
I'm thinking back to Councilmember Harabedian's question of why, and I know initially we all thought there might be a larger rate of return, but I wonder if this next piece of information of how to protect this money for the future going forward, if part of that answer is, well, if it was with the foundation, and when I say protect, I don't mean anything malicious. I just mean, like we said, people leave and move on and there's new people on board. That might be one argument for that. But at this moment, I feel comfortable leaving it with the city and having a further discussion at a Board of Trustee meeting about Mr. Stockley's idea.
Great. Okay, Trustee Spears.
Yeah, I was just looking at the numbers, and at 2% a year, we're talking about 15,000, and 25 drawn. It means it's going to take 75 years to exhaust the funds. We were hoping for something better than that, but of course, if the rate got higher, we'd never exhaust it. No, I don't have any questions.
Okay, Trustee Ziff.
I just look forward to further discussion. I think Rob Stockley brought up something we hadn't thought about, and that's an interesting proposal. So I look forward to further discussion about that.
Okay, and let me, I agree with Trustee Ziff and King. Considering the Rob Stockley idea is something we will pursue at a future meeting, and I think does that clarify our position for you, Mayor?
Oh, well, my question is this, do you not any longer recommend that we consider transferring the money? Because if you say that, then we don't have to talk about it anymore.
Okay, yes,
But
I believe
yeah.
that we are recommending we do not transfer the money, considering there appears to be no benefit to that.
Okay, so with that, I don't know that we really need to discuss anything anymore. The proposal doesn't go forward and staff is okay with that and they know what to do with regard to the future Board of Trustees meeting.
Okay.
Everybody okay with that?
Yes.
All right.
Okay. So with that, we'll end that discussion on the day trust funds. And to wrap up here, do we have any items for a future council meeting from the city council? Any recommendations?
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to get clarification if we're going to be meeting outdoors in our first meeting in October.
Okay, Mr.
Councilmember Goss, we currently have planned for both council meetings in October to be outdoors in Memorial Park.
Hallelujah.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. I thought that I watched it on TV, but I thought the forum went pretty well. So that just proved that this is absolutely doable. So, okay. Anything else?
I don't have anything. It's been a real pleasure being with the trustees. Thank you all. I mean,
Yes.
Thank you.
You're here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
We're getting the hang of the Zoom thing. I think this all.
Yeah, a couple more years and we'll have it figured out.
Oh my God. No, not if that's the case. Okay, so do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody.